Okay, so we're at 5 minutes now, past 10:30. Thank you so much for everyone who made it on time. I can see Mr. Twahir was here right on the dot. Thank you for everyone. Yes, Abdel Rahman as well. Great to have you here. I can see some familiar names in the AI ecosystem in Kenya. Daniel, welcome, and Leo, welcome. So we're going to start, and thank you very much to KEBS and to the chairman for making time for this. So as a way of introduction, let me introduce myself. My name's Mutembei Kariuki. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Fastaga. We are an AI startup based out of Kenya, really focused on working on customizing large language models for use cases on the African continent. I can also see Phil Odor from Meta has joined us as well. Thank you. So this is an event being hosted by the community of practice of AI practitioners. And we are very, very grateful for the team at KEBS for accepting the invite to come and really talk to us as the community of practitioners of AI in Kenya. And I think even from around the region, as I can see, Abdel Rahman is calling in from Dubai. And the whole focus of this is that the Kenya Bureau of Standards has completed a draft of the AI Code of Practice, which was shared as well. And this has been prepared by the Software Engineering, IT Service Management, and Artificial Intelligence Technical Committee, better known as TC94, which is a multi-stakeholder local technical committee currently chaired by Chairman Mr. Alois Siaya, who's also the head of IT at the Kenya Airport Authority. So we are very grateful for you to make time to speak to us. So the community prepared the code in accordance with the procedures of the Bureau, and they have now opened the stage for circulating to the public and comments, which is 60 days until April 8th. So we are joined by Mr. Alois, who's the chairman, and also by Ms. Monica Okoth, who's also part of the team focused on standards for this at the Kenya Bureau of Standards. So we'll start this process. I will hand over to Chairman Mr. Alois to really open this up and set the tone for the conversation. And then later we'll be joined by Ms. Monica, who will also now give us the breakdown of how the procedure is to come up with these standards. And I think I've shared them with you, and I believe a lot of it has been the best practices. I know Ms. Monica has really gone through the process with the IEE as well. And so really, now it's for me to keep quiet and open it up to the chairman, Mr. Alois Siaya. So the floor is yours. If you want to present anything, I think you have access to present as well.
Thank you very much, Mutembei. I'm very happy to be here. Let me just open my video briefly. Yeah, so that members can see face to the name. But I'm in a place where the network might not be very good. So after that, if you'd allow me just to stop my video, then I proceed. So by way of introduction, my name is Alois Siaya. I'm currently the manager in charge of service management at Kenya Airport Authority. But I also wear another hat, like Mutembei had mentioned. I'm the chairman of TC94, which is responsible for standards developments in the areas of software engineering, IT service management, governance, and also artificial intelligence. So my profile before I came to K, I worked in the private sector, but I've been here long enough to call myself a seasoned public servant now. So I'm very happy to be present amongst this committee of practitioners to basically introduce the work we do in KEBS. But later on, my able colleague and secretary, Monica, will take you through a presentation. So in terms of standardization and the mandate of Kenya Bureau of Standards, KEBS is the national body that's mandated to develop standards in the country and is a member of ISO, that's the International Organization of Standardizations, which means that credence is given to the work done by KEBS in the global stage. So any standards that are published by KEBS will be applicable across the globe. And KEBS applies a very structured standards development framework, which is a very good process, takes care of all aspects of standardization, such that you close out many gaps, leads to acceptance of the standards, reliability, and so many other advantages. Unfortunately, this is not very well known from my experience within industry. So we have a lot of contradictions and gaps in terms of the processes. A lot of things are being done in silos. There's no clear understanding of the mandates, so there are duplications within the industry. But that will come out clearly in the presentation. So with respect to artificial intelligence, I just want to mention a few important things or advantages that would come out of standardization, starting with, of course, the code of practice that we're working with. One is inclusivity, because the process takes care of all stakeholders, make sure that they're involved in the development of the standards. It is participatory, such that at the end of it, you end up with a product that is acceptable to everyone and addresses global needs. It also enhances interoperability in terms of the technologies that we're dealing with. AI being a very new technology, we have a lot of issues around interoperability. So that can also be taken care of. It takes care of societal needs, things to do with ethics, openness, impartiality, the fairness, and it's done in a way that there's consensus in the building of those standards, such that the end product is easily applicable and can also help in terms of ensuring conformance to either policy or standards. To another extent, it can also be used to use in governance of the technology. And then it also facilitates prosperity, because out of all this, you can now be able to enhance your economic growth. So in terms of the relevant standards to AI, some of that will be presented by Monica. But like Mutembei mentioned, currently we worked on the code of practice. This was initiated by a request from industry. There are a lot of gaps in the industry. I think a lot of initiatives that are raising these up. And then it was picked up by KEBS and given to the TC. And we took it through the process, which basically starts with the needs, identification of the need, and then it's given to a TC. The TC is constituted by members from public, members from the private, members from academia. So we've deliberated on it, gotten our inputs from our respective organizations, from friends in the industry, and we came up with a draft, which we discussed several stages. And then eventually, when we felt that it was good enough, we took it to the next stage, which is now the public consultation or public review. So that is where we are with that standard. I won't talk so much about it. I leave it to Monica. But maybe before I leave, I allow Monica to come in. What are the objectives, or what are we looking at in terms of working on the code of practice? We wanted to address the gaps that are in the industry currently, because when I go to many presentations, it always comes up. The common thread tying all this is basically the lack of standards. I know we don't have legislation right now. We don't even have regulations. It's still new. I think there are a few countries that have come up with them. We looked at the one which was done by the European Union. But in the absence of that, we felt that the code of practice is still necessary so that it can give practitioners some guidelines how to navigate this space so that we can end up with some good guardrails that will help us, when we are applying artificial intelligence in our day-to-day activities. So the objectives will include closing out those gaps so that it's easier to discuss development and application of standards. It will also provide the guideline, like I mentioned, which is globally acceptable and can be used by all practitioners without having any other issues. And this covers the development, the use, the maintenance, when you're trading in AI, everything, all the works. It will also streamline the approach in dealing with AI, and this by incorporating government, private sector, academia, all players basically, with the appropriate guardrails, like I mentioned, but also a clear understanding of the mandate and the roles. When people get to understand the importance of standards, it's very much easier to operate and to engage freely and with assurance that you're doing it the right way. And it's also easier to attract, like in cases where you need support from the government, or maybe you need sponsorship and all that investments, so that you're not left out, but we have a very streamlined approach to all this process of standardization. I know there's a lot more that we can discuss. Maybe I'll leave that for later. I think let me leave it at that for now and leave the floor to our able secretary, Monica, to give the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chairman. So thank you very much for that brief explanation of how that this is a very multi-sectorial conversation, and that the coming up with the standards has been very inclusive. And then also this is also another forum for getting more participation from the community of practice of people who are actually working on AI, whether it's legal. Welcome, Melissa. I can see you have also joined us as well. And so now I will hand over to Monica. Can share her screen. Perfect. So Monica is a secretary of the committee, and she's also a fellow of the Institute for Engineers. And she has been particularly focused on, she did a fellowship at the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineering, focused on actually this standardization and coming up with standards. So I think we are having very, very able people from KEBS who are having this conversation with us. So over to you, Monica. You can share also your screen. And now over to you. Monica, have you started talking? I can't hear you. Hello, has Monica? No. Okay. I think Monica has had some technical issues, but she's rejoining us right now. But if anyone has a question or anything they would like to share with the chairman, I think you can take your opportunity now before Monica joins. But I think I will actually ask a question to the chairman. So while reading through the draft, I did notice there's quite a lot of really intricate focus on risk management. It would be very interesting to hear the process of what you've been able to recognize in the industry by talking to academia and all the different stakeholders about what has been the real concern and whether people are actually more focused on now that the government has kicked off the AI strategy process. Is it now more of a focus of we need to actually come up with a strategy even before we think about regulation and risk management?
Yeah, thank you, Mutembei. Yeah, risk management, I think, just encompasses the kind of concerns that we've been getting from industry. There are concerns about data privacy, confidentiality. When you use AI, there are risks in terms of, for instance, the drones, which are being used increasingly. They can access, people's privacy, and there's no legislative framework to be able to address responsibility, or if there is any loss. For example, if your data gets leaked out there, or even if there is injury and stuff like that. So we know that there is the office of the ODPC, but they also have challenges when it comes to AI. So in different fora from the membership, when we were discussing, even in different workshops or events, there's a common thread that keeps coming out. AI is there. It presents risks in terms of even technologies that are being brought in that might be unethical. They might not meet certain cultural practices. How do we take care of that? How do you safeguard the community or the citizenship against AI technologies that might be harmful to them? So basically, that's what we've come up with. And what we've gone through, we know that it's not complete. We need to open that space. That is why we open it to the public. And I think the committee of practitioners will play a very important role in terms of ensuring those things are taken care of properly.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And I can see Monica is here, so we can put up her presentation. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how this will also feed into the AI strategy process for Kenya that was just kicked off by the ministry recently. Okay, so over to you, Monica. Monica, I think you're still on mute. Monica, if you're speaking, you're currently on mute. We can't hear you.
Sorry, Chairman, I'm just trying to get hold of Monica on the sidelines. One moment.
Okay, no problem. Okay, I can see David has a question. Please, it's open. The stage is open before Monica comes on.
Great, thank you so much, Mutembei, and thank you for organizing this. It's a really timely, I think, conversation where a lot of organizations and individuals are looking for, sort of direction and of course guidance on how to create, safe AI and safeguarding users. So my name is David Lamayan. I am an e-government and AI advisor. I'm also founder of something called Tenery Research, where we do thesis-driven technology development. And the idea here is that we really try and look at what is possible first, ask the hard questions before we start building. So I really appreciate this. So very quick comment and a question. Quick comment, I really like that I saw these climate considerations on the standard, on the draft standard, where as part of building the AI tools, there should be consideration on its impact on the climate and water usage, electricity, the source of electricity. So that's really good to see, and it's something that we've been advocating for a long time as well, working with Kala. I guess one of the questions that I wanted to ask is in terms of setting a standard around the data input. So if the AI models that are being trained are using copyrighted data, how does this standard, sort of like reference that or guide on that? Because that's a big question right now. OpenAI is being taken to court by the New York Times for using, of course, a lot of their data for training. What are some of the guidance that you would say is included in the draft for either at starting level or at scale up level? What is the consideration on the data inputs and their copyright status? But yeah, thank you for that. Mutembei, back to you.
Thank you very much, Lemayan. Chairman, I think that's to you.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so some breaks, like I said, maybe my connection might have some challenges here. David, thank you very much for that. And you've captured it very appropriately. I think that's where standards come in very handy. Like I said, the process is very well structured and takes care of all aspects, including copyrights. So within the standards, and the code of practice is just another form of standard. When it's taken through the process until it's approved and published, there are usually references that take care of that. If you have copyrighted material, that will be very clearly stipulated within the standard. And then anybody who wants to use the standard, remember standards are not mandatory, but they're very important. They give a guideline on how to do processes, for instance, or even create products which will meet needs at any level, whether it's local, regional, global, but within the community, they will be acceptable. So the copyrights are taken care of within the process. And at the end of the day, since the whole approach is participatory, you open it up, like in this case, we're opening it up to everyone in the industry. So all practitioners, all interested parties will put in their inputs. We will gather all this information and then create the necessary references within the document.
Okay.
So that it's a solid document.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Monica, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I had technology issues, but I'm here now. Sorry.
Okay.
You're very loud. I was just winding up. Sorry, Monica, I was just winding up on a question. So David, thank you very much. Let me allow Monica to proceed, and then we can have this session opened up again later on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Monica, over to you.
Okay, my apologies, everyone. I don't know what happened. I think there are some proxies that were set and they didn't know in the organization, so I had to get a different machine. So
Okay.
I've not been following, but I think I'll just make the presentation and then you can keep me up to date with what was discussed or if there are any questions before I joined.
Yes. So just to lay context, Chairman has just given us a small brief of the committee and what this whole process is about, and then now it's handing over to you to take us through like the presentation of I think this would be a first for Africa for actually coming up with like a code of practice. So I think over to you, and we're looking forward to learning more about the process.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I think Brian will take us through the slides because I've not been able to upload my document. So Brian, this is the latest one that I just sent you. So yeah, so the standard is in, I'll go through 4 areas. So I'll briefly take you through standardization, and then there'll be a section where I'll talk about KEBS briefly. And then there'll be a section on ICT standardization where I'm bringing in how KEBS is involved in ICT standardization. Then we'll go briefly through the structure of the code of practice for AI. So Brian, you can move on. Yeah, so maybe we just define briefly what a standard is. So ISO has standardized definitions for what a standard is, for what a standard body is. So briefly, this is what it is. So standardization is the process of initiating, developing and implementing standards. It's a whole process. The standard is the product of the standardization process. So usually it involves scientific research, experience, and technical and optimum technical requirements of technology to develop the standard. So the standard, which is the product of standardization, has to be a document established by consensus. As you can see, the areas in bolded are areas where it's very important for a standard to have this. So it's established by consensus. It's approved by a recognized standards body or a recognized body, we'll leave it at that. Then it provides for common and repeated use, and it has rules, guidelines, or characteristics for activities or their results aimed at achieving optimal degree in a given context. So this definition is from the ISO IEC guideline. So typically speaking, there are 4 distinct type of standards that can be developed. So you have a product standard, that is a standard that's specifying requirements for a product. So some example are the first one on primary batteries. This is an East African standard on primary batteries. The second one is on bread. It's also an East African standard. Then you can have a service standard, which gives requirement for a service. So something like a medical laboratory standard, like this is an ISO standard for medical laboratories. Then you can have a standard for adventure tourism. That's a service. So you can also have a process standard. This is an African standard. ARS is ARSO. ARSO is the African Standardization Body. So they have a standard on eco-labeling. And then ISO also has a standard on software testing. That's a process. Then you have management standard. This is what I think most people are used to. You have something like ISO 9001. That's a management system standard. ISO 27001, that's an information security standard. And ISO 42001, that's an AI management system standard. So basically, just go back a little bit, Brian. Yeah, so standards are normally named according to, like if you see EAS, that means it's a Kenya standard, an East African standard that has been adopted by Kenya. If you see KS, ARS, EAS, it's an African standard that's been adopted at East African level, and and it's a Kenya standard. Kenya has also adopted it. And then if you see ISO/IEC/IEEE, that means these three organizations came together to develop a standard. So the standard on software testing was developed by three international standardization organizations. So the prefix is who developed the standard usually, and then the number is a sequential number. We can go ahead. So we have levels of standardization. We have standards that are developed at the international level, and it includes members from different countries developing the international standard. So the main international standards are ISO, there's IEC, there's ITU, and there's Codex. Codex is mainly on food standards. And then at regional level for Kenya, we have EAC standards, we have ARSO standards, and we have AFSEC. These are all standardization bodies. So EAC basically is Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, the East African community coming together to form a committee to develop standards. So then we have what you call national standards bodies. So KEBS is a national standards body. Something like SABS, which is South African Bureau of Standards, is the National Bureau of Standards of South Africa. And then we have British Standards Institute, that's the national standards body for for Britain. Then we have sector-specific standards, something like ISACA, they have standards they develop in their industry, and IEEE also has standards they develop within their sector. So we can move forward. So ISO is a network of national standards bodies that represents ISO at national level. So if you are to be a member of ISO, you have to be a national standards body, like Kenya Bureau of Standards, like British Standards Institute, Uganda Bureau of Standards, to be a member body of ISO. So currently we have 171 countries that are members for ISO. And within ISO, there are about 777 technical committees and working groups. So ISO can only have one member body, one member per country. And usually the way ISO prefers to work is to work with the national standards bodies for their standardization activities. So KEBS is a member of ISO, and KEBS has 268 committees that it has established mirror committees within the country. So for every ISO technical committee, KEBS has a mirror in the country that mirrors the activities at national level. So we can go to the next one. Brian? Sorry, I'm not moved. Has the slide moved?
Yes, it has, Monica.
Okay, sorry, let me just change my network.
So I think while you're changing the network, is it possible to also share the presentation to everyone?
Okay, it's moved now. So there's ISO and then there's IEC. So IEC is the International Electrotechnical Commission. You can hear me, I hope. Because I'm having a
Yes,
problem.
yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, so the IEC is a global network for non-profit membership. It also has membership of about 170 countries and coordinates about 20,000 experts globally. So it was founded in 1906 and has made electrical and electronic technology safer, more efficient, and reliable. So IEC is like the electrotechnical version of ISO at international level, but they concentrate mainly on electrical and electrotechnical technologies, which ICT falls within. So KEBS has 6 committees, is a member of 6 committees under the IEC. So can we move to the next one? So, okay, this is the map of countries that are members to ISO. So we have the member bodies, and then you have bodies are just members by correspondence. So you can have, you see I don't know if this is purple or brown. Yeah, so this is the membership of ISO. It's probably almost all over the globe. We have members of ISO, but they're members through their national standards bodies. So we can move. So KEBS participates in ISO in about 126 members, and it's an observing member. It's 126 committees, sorry, and it's a observing member in 142, and participates directly in the management board of three ISO committees. So just a brief on KEBS. So it was established as a national standards body. It was to an act, which is the Standards Act, CAP 496 of the laws of Kenya. And it started its operation in 12th July 1974. And currently it's under the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Cooperation. This usually changes depending on the government. Sometimes we are under trade, sometimes we are under commerce. So it depends on the way the cabinet is set up. So currently we are under the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives. So we can go to the next one. So how does KEBS develop standards? So standards are made up of committees. KEBS has committees in each and every sector. There are 126 that I just talked about. So we get members from industry. So that includes anybody who is a stakeholder or a partner can join the technical committees. It's open to anyone who feels they're interested and they have the capability of joining the committee to develop the standards. So usually you can have government authorities, private companies, or sector organization, and everyone has an equal say when the standard is being developed. So even individuals or private organizations can help developing the standards if they are experts in the field or if they feel they have anything to contribute. So they usually delegate one or more representatives to sit in the committee. Usually KEBS only acts as the secretariat to these committees, but it's actually the industry that comes up with these standards. So usually people refer to them as KEBS standards, but they are Kenya standards, with KEBS as secretariat aiding in the development of the standards. So we have a few principles for standardization that when you're developing the standards, you have to observe. This is consensus. That's the general agreement of all parties involved. They have to be impartial, they have to be coherent, relevant, transparent, and open. So when a standard development process is tested, it has to have all these characteristics. So we can go to the next one. So usually we develop the standard in stages. So we have a proposal stage. This is a stage at which any interested party can propose an area of standardization, and then you propose it through KEBS. There's a website where we have. I'll give it at the end of the presentation where you can send your proposal for developing a standard. So if there is no technical committee, we form a technical committee in that area, and then the technical committee picks the request and looks at it and develops a committee draft of the standard. After the committee draft has been developed, then you have the public review stage, which is where we circulate now to everyone, and all the interested parties are able to get the standard, bring in their comments, which will now be incorporated depending on if they're technical or even if they're editorial, we'll incorporate them through the technical committee. So after the public review stage, which is usually 60 days, the standard comes back for balloting, where the committee has to ballot, actually look at the comments that came in, review the comments, see what they can change in the standard, and then come up with a balloting draft. Then finally, the TC will ballot on this document, and if it's approved by the TC, then it goes to our National Standards Council, where it's now approved as a Kenya standard. So we can go to the next one. So yeah, that's the standards development process at nationally. So we have what we call the Joint International Technical Committee of Information Technology. That is how we develop ICT standards, both internationally and locally. So we have mirror committees, JTC. Okay, just go to the next one. Probably I'm putting the cart before the horse. So JTC1 is the Joint Technical Committee under ISO and IEC for Information Technology. So it was created in 1987. So both ISO and IEC came together and created one committee because they had separate committees that were handling information technology, which was duplicating the standards. So they decided to come up with one joint committee to develop information technology standard. And the mission, as you can see, is to develop, maintain, and promoting and facilitating IT standards required by the global markets that meet business user requirements. So the structure of JTC1, it has 22 active subcommittees. They're supposed to be 42, but sometimes because of converging technologies, the serial numbering is now at 43, but because of converging technology, sometimes a technical committee can be joined to be one. So currently they have 22 information technology committees. So we go to the next one. So KEBS TC94, which Alois is the chair and Brian a member. I don't know if you have any members also here. So it mirrors JTC1 under three committees. So we have a software engineering committee. This is subcommittee 7 of JTC1. We have IT service management and IT governance, which is subcommittee 40 of JTC1. And we have artificial intelligence, which is subcommittee 42 of JTC1. So the scope of SC42, where artificial intelligence standards are developed, is standardization in the area of artificial intelligence. That's simply their scope of standardization. So this is a map of membership for subcommittee 42. So we have 35 participating members, 15 observing, and we have ANSI. This is the American National Standards Institute, is the secretariat. Every committee has to have a secretariat which guides the process of the functions of that subcommittee. So right now it's the American National Standards Institute. So we can go to the next one. So the way it's structured, it has 5 working groups and artificial intelligence. They have foundation standards. These are mainly vocabulary and such things, just vocabulary mainly. And then working group 2 is on data. Working group 3 is on trustworthiness. Working group 4 is on use cases and applications. And working group 5 is on computational approaches and computational characteristics of AI. So that's how it's structured at international level. We can go to the next one, Brian. Yeah, so basically now, since we were here to discuss this particular Kenya standard, so this is case 3007. We normally serialize our numbers from 1 to right now we are 3007. So the year is 2024. So it's a Kenya standard. So clause 1 is the scope. Clause 2 is the reference documents we've used. Clause 3, terms and definitions. We have 4.1, which is characteristics, and 4.2, which is measures, activities, and documentation required. So the current status of this standard is public review, which means it's under circulation for the public to bring in their comments and participate at this stage. So the scope of this document, it provides a set of recommendations intended to help organizations develop, provide, and use develop, provide, or use AI systems responsibly in pursuing its objectives and meet applicable requirements and obligations related to interested parties and expectations from them.
Just an
So
update on time, Monica. We have about 10 more minutes, and then
Okay.
we can open up to Q&A because I'm sure people are
Yeah.
eager to ask.
Okay, yeah. So it applies to all organizations, regardless of size, type, nature, that provides and uses products and services that utilize AI systems. So we can go to the next one. So the purpose of the standard probably is to propose approaches to establish trust in AI systems through transparency, explainability, controllability, and other requirements, software requirements. So engineering pitfalls and typical associated threats, risks, and AI systems, along with possible mitigation techniques and methods. This is to mitigate against these pitfalls. So approaches to assess and achieve availability, resiliency, reliability, accuracy, safety, security, and privacy of AI system. So it's a guiding document that can help you audit yourself and assess your system or your AI service. So we can go to the next one. So I don't know. Have we moved?
Yes, we've moved. Is it okay on your side?
Yeah, so
We are now at characteristics of artificial intelligence applications. Is that what you see?
no, I think there's a problem with my network, probably.
Okay.
Just a minute. So I'll use a different. So
Yeah,
for
I think this is the most
characteristics.
exciting part. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So the characteristics.
Monica, can I suggest that you proceed with your slides, and then we will follow up.
Follow up.
Just proceed with the slides because they're the same, and then Brian, I think, will follow up with how you are presenting.
Yeah. So the characteristics of AI. So we have it's the standard basically shows what an AI system. How can you distinguish an AI system from what is a non-AI system? This is at clause 4.1. And then it also has the life cycle processes of AI systems. And then it has a bit of stakeholder roles and responsibilities under each process, life cycle process. So, and then again, the standard brings out the issues on trustworthiness, risk and risk management, and ethics and societal concerns, which are the major issues in AI right now, and shows how to mitigate some of them. So it recommends measures for AI robustness, reliability, resilience, controllability, explainability. Those are all under trustworthiness. We can go ahead. These are some characteristics of trustworthiness: predictability, transparency, verification and validation, and explainability. So we have bias and fairness also under trustworthiness. Then we have, which is not under trustworthiness, this is how to mitigate. It's a guidance on risk management for AI. This is not directly under trustworthiness. And then we have what we call the ethical framework. So we have a risk management framework and an ethical framework. And the ethical framework, we have societal concerns and privacy issues. And then we have an annex where we want to see if we can the standard can assist in having a quality model for AI. What happened is that there's a quality model for software that has been developed under a separate standard, but the committee felt that there are some issues of quality that apply to general software systems, but they don't apply to AI systems, especially under trustworthiness, which is not an issue under software. So there's a new quality model for AI and a new standard under that. So the standard wants to give guidance or reference to this standard so that when you're coming up with stakeholder needs, you have a quality model of what your stakeholder needs are. And then privacy issues are very important in AI also. So under Annex A, again, we have an area where how to conduct a privacy impact assessment. And then we can go to the next. So these are basically important links that you can use if you want to apply for TC membership. Any TC, we have several for ICT and also other sectors. That's the link. If you want to access the public review documents, like now the KS 3007, that's the link. And then if you want more information on international standardization, I've also given a link. So I think that's the end. You can go to the next slide, which I think is the end.
Okay.
Yeah, then you can take the questions.
I think it's at the end. Thank you so much, Monica. I think that was really robust and comprehensive explanation of how, the standards are developed right from ISO side to like the Africa region to also like the East African region, and then being focused on the country level. And I think I think we now have a very clear understanding of how this process usually works as in, generally globally, and how IEEE is also part of that process. I think one of the key things that came out to me, I can probably open up and then we can take questions. People can put up their hands and then I can come to you. I think the first one that's coming for me is how do you see this connecting with the process that the government has started on the coming up with the strategy document for AI in Kenya?
So I can answer that now.
Yes, sure.
Yeah, so the way the governance framework is usually in this country is that you have the policies which tell you what to do. Because if you had an AI policy tells you this is what we'll do, it's not an in-depth or technical document, but it just gives you a directional guidance on what needs to happen. So usually below the policy, or I can say that documents that can assist policy are usually, you can have legislation, you can have standards, and you can have acts. So usually a standard is a strategy, as I know there's an AI strategy that's being developed, which also gives the how it will be done. I'm not sure if the strategy will give by whom or what, so it gives direction also. So the standard is more technical and actually says how these things will be done and by who. And standards, you can have requirement standards, you can have guideline standards, but at this stage, we feel that it's better to have a code of practice. But later, if there's legislation that needs to be provided for AI, then if the government feels like there needs to be a standard based on that, then probably KEBS can come up with that. But right now, we're at a level where we just want to assist the industry on how on AI and any other related issues to AI based on what's happening at the international level. So it's a supporting document basically to what the government will provide as guidance for AI.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that explanation. I think now we can open up for questions. I think Mary has just mentioned something that she's interested in the committee user engagement stakeholder forums on AI. How can she be able to participate? Or is it just by directly submitting an application?
So she wants to.
She's
Sorry,
interested in being part of like the forums on AI. Or Mary, are you open? You can just ask your question.
Hi, sorry, it's Mary. Sorry, I am double dipping in 2 meetings, but thank you so much. I may have missed to answer this question. But yes, correct. I'm very interested in AI from a implementation and policy perspective. I'm also interested in the agriculture and health systems perspective. And so, quite frankly, I'm just trying to see what firms are there at a local, national, and stakeholder engagement that we can be part of and participate so that we're also part of these conversations.
Okay. I think well, I can also like add, Chishwing, I think we also have people from I think I saw that we had Alfred from AI Kenya. So we have the AI Kenya. We also have conversations at CPIT where Melissa sits. We also have the community of practice. So there are quite a number of different initiatives that are going on in the community of people who are actually practicing on AI. And I think you're very open to be part of, actually, there's a WhatsApp group for that. And we can pretty much add you to that if you share a number. And then also on the side of the KEBS side, as Monica mentioned, I think it's very open to go into those links and submit applications to be part of the technical committees, as well as the public review of the document and send in your thoughts for KEBS. I think, Monica, have I covered on the KEBS side, or you can add?
Yeah, you have covered it very well.
Okay, perfect. I think another question that I had on my side quite a bit is, so now we've seen the emergence of a lot of open source models, right? So there's, Meta recently launched the Llama 3, you have Olmo, and a lot of other open source models. How do you see them interacting with the standards? Because, these are already models that have been developed and probably not developed in Kenya. How do you see them connecting with the standards and the follow-up of how to certify them, or how do you see this interaction of people who are actually going to be working on these large language models that have already been open sourced and not developed on the continent?
Yeah, so we are at a code of practice. It is at a very lower level of let's say implementation, but I'm seeing us going to an area where now we have a standard where we have ISO 42001, which is our management system for AI, which actually you can be certified against that. So if Kenya would adopt this and maybe work with the code of practice to make sure that maybe you are implementing 42,000, then we'll be able to go into the certification space where you can audit the systems, the models, and see, yeah, you can get certification based on what you're doing and how you've created this model, the process, and the product. But currently, because we don't have a strategy, we don't have a policy, we're still waiting to see. So it might be certification, it might be legislation. We don't know. It will be up to government to see what to do. But the private sector can also decide to pick up certification as a way to audit these models that are already here, or new models that are going to be introduced in the country. So that will be up to the policy, the strategy, if there'll be an act. But certification, it can be a private sector initiative to say, now we want to audit, because certification is not directly under government, but regulation is. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Monica. So I think right now the way it is that we're open to use these open source models, to work on them, and then just follow some of these guidelines to make sure that we are being ethical. But I think these open source models are creating a huge opportunity for people to actually develop their talents and use cases. So I think what I'm getting from the sentiment is that it's open for everybody to use and see what they can develop, and then also consider the the code of practice that is there to set the standards. So I like that. Okay, thank you, Melissa. Okay, so I think we are coming up to the end of the session, but I'm sure there are a couple of more questions that are there. So anyone, please, if you have a question, put up your hand, and we can, because it's not every day you have people with strong math and computer science backgrounds. Oh, Leo, yes. Leonida, you have the floor.
Thanks, Mutembei. And thank you, Monica and Chairman, for your introduction to this code of practice. My question is on, okay, assuming after this whole process is completed, how does the code of practice provide guidelines on how to show that, especially for some of us who are developers of AI, how to show that we have abided by the code of practice? What are those explicit documentation we need to provide to be able to showcase that we abide by this code of practice, and how binding is it at that stage? Thanks.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. And before you answer, I just wanted to add something to the question. So we could be consumers of AI, that the companies we are running utilize AI in certain processes, and as producers of AI. So does the code of practice also provide guidelines for both aspects of AI use in organizations?
Yeah, so yeah, for the standard, basically the way it has been set up, it has a column on what you need to check for each and all those characteristics of AI, the non-functional and the functional characteristics. So it's a work in progress. Right now, it's open for public review. This can be improved, but I think we have in clause 4, there's a column that has all the documentation and all the measures you need to take to ensure all these properties in your system, in your models, in your application. So it's guiding you to what you need to do, and probably the documentation you need to have. But in terms of, and then it goes ahead and gives responsibility to everyone, the AI producer, the AI user, so everybody knows what their responsibilities in the AI life cycle is. So it can be improved. It's a work in progress, as I've said. So what we have now, in the standards is a draft, so we can improve these measures, we can improve the documentation, but currently it still has that guidance for the developers, for the producers, for the users, for basically all the stakeholders in AI. I don't know if I've answered your question or...
I think it's just more of a clarification on, let's say we meet those, how do we that we abide by this code of practice? Would there be like a, as an ISO certification, there's usually a certificate provided, etc. So I just wanted to know, like, what is that explicit show that we can show customers that we abide by this code of practice?
Yeah, so basically at this point it can be a recommendation that can come from out there that let's make this a certification document. But currently where we are, we're just asking the community to let us know if they want certification, it can go towards certification. But currently it's just for you to audit yourself so that later, if even the strategy says you have to be certified, you'll know that you have all the requirements for certification. So it's a self-auditing tool, so that whatever the strategy of AI policy says, then we'll abide by that. And if the industry says they want certification, we can go that direction. So it's open to suggestions.
If I may
Thank you,
just
Monica.
add onto that, like Monica explained, the process ensures that it takes care of consensus. And I think the challenge we're having is that we don't have right now legislation, or we don't have regulations, and there's so much activity going around the AI tech. So basically what we want to do is to provide the guidelines in terms of a code of practice and in the absence of legislation. But if legislation were to come, then maybe it would need to be revised to take care of that, because that is the point at which now it would be much easier to enforce. But like Monica has mentioned, codes of practice, all standards, it is not mandatory, but it is very important that people abide by certain standards. So ideally within the document, it will provide guidelines for possibly governance within the implementations. And hopefully that will take care of challenges like the ones that you've raised, Leo. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think I see another hand from Emmanuel, and I think from the concepts, from what I'm hearing, is that this is standards being recommended. It's not legislation, it's recommendations, and the idea is for the community of people who are working on AI to use this as guidelines to self-regulate and self-govern, so that we can actually build responsibly. So it's not saying that this is you must do, but this is the best, and it's just saying these are the suggestions of that this is the best way to actually build responsible AI. And so it's a suggestion to help the ecosystem to develop like the best tools and the best AI that is not harmful. I think that's what I'm getting. And then so straight to you, Emmanuel, and then we can round off with maybe one other question, because I think we've gone over time. I think people have been very, very, very learning a lot. Emmanuel, the floor is yours.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'll just first begin by apologizing in case this might have been covered already. I've just been coming in and out. What I wanted to, I guess, understand, or probably throw a question, was regarding distributed compute. One of the areas in which we have targeted from our technology company is the idea that, of course, as AI and the demand of AI continues to grow, there is an incessant need for GPU compute power, right? And one of the reasons we are seeing why some of these open source models have been predominantly developed in the US is because a lot of the state-of-the-art graphics cards and high performing GPUs are essentially centralized there. And we looked at it from a perspective of, look, if regions like Africa, I'm a Zimbabwean myself, even if we wanted to then at some point participate in AI, there's going to be that need for distributed compute as an alternative to allow our local, organizations and companies to develop these AI solutions, right? And I guess I wanted to ask if that has been, or is being looked at within the code of practice, and if not, how we can obviously, and I'm picking up that obviously the door is open for the community to make suggestions. How can we also, I guess, get involved in obviously, bringing this up as something to be looked at, particularly from an Africa perspective, because I think we recognize it's very vital that there is an availability of this compute power, and that's an area we're targeting.
Cool. Either Monica or Chairman or anyone else.
Yeah, I think it's open. It's open to suggestion. All areas, as you can see, we have a technical committee. It's up to the task. So any area that we feel needs to be standardized locally, to be adapted locally, that will be able to take up that task. So currently, I don't think there are any standards on that. I'm not sure I've seen any standards on GPUs unless it's not under AI itself, but I can check. And also, we are open to suggestions on how to move forward with that, because we want all areas to be covered, either through guidelines, standards, codes of practice, or even legislation. So yeah, it's an area we can look at, but currently we don't have anything that is currently, yeah.
Thank you, Monica. Emmanuel?
Thank you. No, I was just going to say, so then I think you posted the links, isn't it, that where we can, I suppose, reach out to make those suggestions and I guess open those conversations, correct? Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'll also add a bit. So I think with distributed computing, there is also right now, if you look at the privacy laws that are coming up, the Kenyan one, so the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, there's a lot of conversation about having data domiciled in the country if it's personal identifiable information. And so there'd be questions of like, okay, how would we be able to distinguish between models that are, going to be working with, PII data? And then I think then I'd also recommend for you, Emmanuel, to actually have a look at the privacy laws, data privacy laws there, and seeing, okay, how does that impact, domiciling data or having data centers in country versus, also, distributed computing that's also outside of the continent. I think that would be an interesting conversation. But I think, thank you so much for actually coming to this forum. And I think we can add onto what the Kenya Bureau of Standards is working on in the community of practice of how will we be handling this kind of questions of like, moving data across like borders. I think the EU also has come up with the Data Markets Act. And I think that should also, slowly, eventually come to Kenya. So I think it's in that ecosystem that we actually are having these conversations, even about distributed compute. And then I think the other question I would like to finish off with is, how does this code of practice, because I did notice, like reading through that, a lot was borrowed from, for example, the National Institute of Standards and Technology in the Department of Commerce in the US, when they've come up with the risk management framework, as well as the EU Act. So how does this particular code of practice align with other research work that is going on? For example, definitions of responsible AI by UNESCO. How is the alignment being done?
Yeah, so most of the standard was, we got reference from international standards, and usually international standards are developed also by consensus. So by the time a standard is adopted as an international standard, there's been consensus, and it's in line with other documentations that people are currently using. So we base that, knowing that we develop them and use reference documents, knowing that they've been developed by consensus and they're in line with other documentation. But like I said, it's still open to, if you have any other documentation you feel that can improve it more than where it is now, then we can incorporate it based on the technicality, or yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Monica.
Yeah.
I think what I'm seeing is that the community is saying that this is a very open and collaborative process. So you're actually, reaching out and saying, hey, community of practitioners of AI, what is it that you want, and how, and listening to us and seeing how, you can actually make a better, better standards. And I think maybe you can also explain to us that, because based on my understanding, this is not a permanent thing. So even after the 19th, I think every year there's usually a review. Please, you can explain to us that process.
Yeah, the standards are fluid. So we can develop the standard. Usually we review it after 5 years, but in technology, things change so fast. So anytime something new comes, We can even review it after a year and publish it and go through the same process. And then we have other processes where if something was left out, you can have an amendment to the document. So they're not cast in stone. There's always improvement for standards.
Okay, thank you so much. And I think we've really gotten into this conversation. I think this is something that everybody feels that is very important. I'd like to thank you so much for everybody who's been able to attend. I think we'll have to close out because time has really gone. Thank you so much to Think, to Brian Omwenga, to to the KEBS, to Chairman. Thank you so much also to you, Monica, for taking us through this. This has been very enlightening of how the process of building these standards actually goes. And we've really seen that this is a very international process. And, really kudos to you at KEBS, because I think this is going to be a first for the continent and really showing that, there's a lot of leadership in the AI space, even coming from the Standards Board in Kenya for the rest of the continent. So thank you so much. Maybe if there's last words from Chairman or from you, please share, and then we can close off.
And maybe I can just say before the chairman speaks, it's open. Everybody is free to go through the document and bring in their comments so that we can improve the document. And again, I apologize for coming in late. I should have been more prepared. But thank you, everyone, for attending and participating in the process.
Thank you very much, Monica. I think we've just started the process, and I'm sure there'll be a lot more interactions. Thank you so much. I think I see the chairman might have dropped off.
I'm still here.
Oh, you're still here. Sorry. I wasn't seeing the name. Okay, please, you can close up for us with parting.
Thank you very much, Mutembei. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Monica, for that nice presentation. Yes, I think what we wanted to do was just to bring the work of KEBS to the community, and we appreciate the interest that the community has. I think we have a lot to gain. Everyone has a lot to gain from this process. Those gaps that we see in the industry, the challenges that we are getting in the various operations, the work that is being done in silos, the fears about data privacy and all that. Having a code of practice that is approved and published by a national standards body is very key to solving most of these problems. So we'll be able to close out those gaps, and I will encourage the practitioners here to share out what you've learned from this presentation. Let's engage so that we end up with a product that's going to be acceptable to all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody, and looking forward and I believe KEBS is looking forward to contributions from everyone. Remember that this public participation office is open, period is open till April. So I think it's May 19th, if I'm not wrong. Yep, if it's open
June.
till June 19th, June 8th. Is it going to be June 8th?
Yes, June 8th. It's actually 2 months from April 8th. That should be June 8th.
2 months from April 8th. Okay. So up until June, please send in your comments, your recommendations. We get them from everybody, so we can actually make this a very participatory process, and really establish Kenya as a leader in the AI space in Africa and globally. So thank you so much to everybody, and thank you again to Brian and Steve at Think and the team there. Thank you, Mr. Twahir, for being the first person on, and to everybody else who's part of the community of practitioners in AI space. Thank you again, and have a nice day, and we'll continue interacting.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thanks, and good day.
Yeah. And I think the presentation will also be sent to everyone's email.